a mother now, and you're expected to do all of them on autopilot mode.
In all of this, where is the traditional knowledge that was supposed to be passed on to us?
Yeah, postnatal maternal care is not as elaborate as what we do with the prenatal mothers.
What are some of the other burdens that you think a mother postpartum carries? And
Who made it look like it was all very rosy, and then who made it look like suffering wasn't a part of it. We all need to hear the truth, and it will help us prepare better.
and I think it healed a part of me inside just now. Thank you. Hi, welcome to the podcast of the Maa Life. My name is Aparna and I'm your host. And today we have a very special guest with us, Abinaya, who's the founder of Heart on Sleeve Counseling. She is also a mother of twins and holds a lot of space for mothers in an online and an offline space. So over to you, Abinaya.
Thank you so much, Aparna. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation today.
Okay, so Abinaya, before we dive into some really deep questions, I want to know from you what are the sort of memories that you carry from your preconception times and your pregnancy times to the times that you had your babies, when you
Yeah.
birthed your babies.
Yeah.
What are the sort of memories that you carry from that time?
Yeah. This just feels like you're making me talk about the trial life period. Things were very different. Yes, preconception. The couple of things that I remember is remember well is there was a lot of time, and it was more like two bachelors living in the same house. There was a lot of time, and a lot of space to do things according to your whims and fancy. Like you want to go out, you want to dine out, or you want to travel. And there was just basically, it felt like there was some amount of responsibilities, but it didn't feel it is definitely not similar to feeling responsible to a life or two. So that I think was like really a huge difference then. And conception time. So yeah, I remember waiting at the doctor's place, and then I was called in, and the doctor was performing a scan, and then immediately she said, call Abinaya's husband. Okay. I wasn't sure what it was for, because our pregnancy test was positive. That's when we went to visit the doctor, and then once my husband was in, she tells him that like you have twins. I think
Wow.
I think she really wanted to have both of us together when she shares this news about twins. And I just look at him, and then he has tears rolling down his cheeks.
Aw.
Yeah. And I am still not sure how how many feelings I had at that point of time. Of course, it was a conscious choice to
Yeah.
have children. Then it was also you know throwing the questions of like, okay, there are two, and because this is a surprise. And there was joy, and then there were also like questions, a lot of questions, and of course a bit of fear, because like I've never been pregnant before. And it was a very mixed amount of feelings, I remember. And I think all through my pregnancy, it was really a lot more dreamier. I'd listen to lullabies every night. I'd learn new lullabies from
Wow.
different languages. I learned Malayalam lullaby. That wasn't very difficult. Then I also learned Bengali lullaby, which I still don't fully remember the meaning, although like I got help from somebody. But those things, it was like days of waiting for your surprise parcels to be delivered. Right. So
I like how you
yeah.
describe it. Okay.
Yeah. So I there was also another layer to my conception time, because I was put to bed rest during my
Okay.
pregnancy, because I had short cervix. So
And when was this? For
this
what duration?
So this was around, I was 3 months pregnant.
Okay.
Because, even, I mean, after our pregnancy news was confirmed, there were a few times where, I used to have bleeding and spotting. And
okay.
so we'd rush to doctor to make sure that everything is fine. We also had to perform a little more number of scans than what is usually recommended, just to understand and ensure that, the pregnancy is smooth. So, they decided to, have this procedure for me when I was 3 months pregnant. So, the rest of the few months were more in, like being in bed and, so I think there was a, it was a part of me felt that there was some amount of loss because, like you had to like stay homebound and, like not being able to go out and having limitations as in like how you move your own body. So yeah, those were also present. At hindsight, I also see that, although we were aware that we are going to, have children, we were going to have twins. From here, I can really see that was in that period, during that period, it wasn't fully kicked in with that, what it is going to be like when you have twins.
Yeah. No, I get that. And thank you for sharing such a heartfelt story.
Yeah.
And narrating those small incidents.
Yeah.
So Abinaya, you are very popularly known as the unlearning parent, and you're a psychotherapist as well. But here is what I'm very curious to know, is that when you started with your motherhood journey, was it equally challenging for you as well? Or you were okay with it? Or how was it like?
Yeah. I personally like this question as well. So I wasn't a psychotherapist to begin with. I had a career which was totally unrelated to this side of work that I've been doing now. A lot of the credentials that I have today were added much later after my kids were born. Because
that's so interesting.
Yeah. I know. Because like it also comes from a personal space that like you see things, you experience things, and then you feel like you want to be a part of it somewhere. Although it's a bigger picture, you want to be you want to play a role somewhere, in some area of this postpartum or the mental health and stuff. So that is just how it happened. And this is not to say that if I were a psychotherapist before, I wouldn't have had a difficult postpartum. It is not to say that, because it is just like an oncologist is not immune to getting cancer, right? So it's very similar to that. I just thought I'll clarify this as we speak about this. I would say that my postpartum period was extremely difficult to navigate.
Okay.
Like I had mentioned earlier, I was put to bed rest for a few months during my pregnancy. That felt like, this part is difficult. But then, the later parts were even more difficult, right? Because I had a complication with my delivery, and then I had, one vaginal and one C-section for, each of my twin. And then my second twin also went through some further complications, and it wasn't a very... it's still memorable. I mean, the memory is still fresh, but it wasn't a very pleasant, time, as in when we think of the delivery period. And soon after this, I think then there is a list of things that you are expected to go do, because you're a mother now, and you're expected to do all of them on autopilot mode. And but here you are, really wondering what happened, or how did that happen, or how did this happen, or what am I supposed to do from here, or and then adding to it a lot of expectations from coming around. And then there is always an ongoing debate about is this breast milk or formula, is this traditional weaning or self-weaning, and basically a lot of choices to make constantly while you're new to this, while you still feel like, oh, I'm a beginner here, I don't know what I'm doing. And I also had difficulties bonding with the twins initially. Of course, this is the day that I was waiting for. Obviously, this is what I was referring to as the surprise bundles coming in. But it also felt like, it was a level of, a layer of disconnection where, of course, you're taking care of the baby, you're doing the caregiving process. There are people to help around, but it just still felt like there was something that wasn't there.
Right.
Some connecting element wasn't really there. It's because it could be because of how my pregnancy period went in, or it could be because of how the delivery happened and how I'm still reeling under all these memories during the pregnancy, how the complications happened and all of this. But it does really take a lot of time to process all of this. But it's also very tricky because you are not left with that kind of time, because you're hardly battling to get couple of hours sleep when you are a mother, especially a new mother.
Your bandwidth goes very skewed. So
That's right. And there is also very famous advice, right? We have all heard, please sleep when the baby sleeps. Right?
We've all heard it.
And did any of us do it?
Very difficult.
Because you're still trying to get few minutes for yourself, just to breathe, and you cannot act by a clock even for those few minutes. So I would say that it was very difficult, and there were challenges everywhere. I'd also take this opportunity to share that I am not very happy with women who came before us, who made it look like it was all very rosy, and then who made it look like suffering wasn't a part of it, who made it look like you can do it all. Because I wish like somebody had told me that like it is not how this is going to look like, because we all need to hear the truth, and it will help us prepare better. But like somehow it is just made to look like you becoming, I mean, any woman becoming a pregnant or delivering a child, it is made to feel like the climax of the story.
I always say this when I'm speaking with mothers, that how it was made to look like to us is that birth is very natural, it'll happen. Pregnancy is very natural, it'll come to you. For that matter, they say that breastfeeding is very natural, it has to come to every woman. But in all of this, where is the traditional knowledge that was supposed to be passed on to us? And this traditional knowledge is not just some skills to do multitasking or to do to take care of the child, but also the skills to cope up. Right? So, I mean, you're right. We were given such a dreamy picture, no? That you just have a child and your life sort of gets sorted, and rather it just goes the other way. There is so much more that comes with it.
So much more,
So, Abinaya, how many years postpartum are you now?
I am 6 years and 9 months postpartum.
Okay. Wow. Congratulations on coming so far.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is there a definition that we can put to postpartum, Abinaya, to be honest?
In the medical settings, it's usually taken as, like for about a year, it's seen as a postpartum. And honestly, whatever you're going through during your pregnancy or your delivery, it doesn't come with an expiry date that everything is going to sort itself within
1
the
year.
postpartum period. Unfortunately, I would also say that the postnatal maternal care is not as elaborate as, what we do with the prenatal mothers, how we call them in for checkups, or how many in what frequency do we conduct the checkups, or the amount of care that we take in, for their diet, or to tell them what to do and what not to do. With postpartum, although it is said as 1 year, I would say that, it doesn't really settle itself, in 1 year's time. Because postpartum doesn't know there is a date. And I mean, a lot of times it actually, spills out and extends. I would say postpartum is not something that would get sorted in a year. Maybe, you can say that something arise during this period, but, there is a possibility that it can spill over and stretch
and
longer.
it can linger on for
for longer period of time if not addressed.
I also read something which said that women doesn't forget how she was treating during her postpartum period ever in her life. So,
Yeah.
which does mean, right, that postpartum period is a very important phase of a woman's life.
Yeah.
This brings me to another question that I want to ask you. So, they say that postpartum period is like throwing you at the deep end of a sea, wherein you are struggling to sort of stay afloat. As someone like you, Abinaya, who talks to so many mothers in the postpartum period, the early postpartum, I would say, like the first 1 year or later on, what do you think is the hardest burden that these mothers carry?
Yeah. This is a very difficult question, Aparna, because it is like, like I have 50 bags I'm carrying, and then you're asking me which one of it is heaviest, and then I feel all of it
I
are
know.
heaviest, right?
Yeah.
And also
Maybe
like,
just a few that you can share with us
yeah.
while
So,
keeping your confidentiality in
Yeah.
place, like just a few.
Like I just like to list out a few common things. This
Yeah.
is not just me noticing as a therapist, but I think this is something that we all see every day. I don't know how many of us notice and take a mark there, but one is a constantly perpetuated lie that is a lot burden on women is that they can do all of it,
Oh yeah.
right? And it comes with supporting statements like, because women before us did all of it,
Okay.
right? Women didn't get to vote, until they got the voting rights. That doesn't mean that I should dismiss my rights and then not vote because they did it. So I think there is a lot difference between not having a voice or not being able to speak up for myself, and because of which there are still like in many places, many families, women are still not able to speak up what they want. But just because somebody is tolerating a fair load of burden doesn't mean that it's not heavy. I think this is one big thing that I noticed.
Absolutely. That's a very powerful thing that you just said.
Mm.
And I think it healed a part of me inside
Yeah.
just now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What are some of the other
Mm.
burdens that you think a mother postpartum carries, and
Mm.
why do you think we should have more discussion about it or talk more about it? I know one podcast like this may not be sufficient, but what do you think? Like, what are some of the other things?
Yeah. Like I said, like one is that there is an expectation to do all of it, even though this doesn't come from like family. A lot of times, sometimes we ourselves carry an expectation, as in like, oh, I want to make this for my kids, I want to do this next,
Yeah.
because like somewhere you're grasping all the ideas from everywhere, and then you think that you can do all of it. Now I don't have any any doubt on the capacity of what mothers are capable of doing.
Yeah.
But I just come from a place to see if it is even fair for women to do all of it. I also feel, the one of the biggest scams that ever happened is, making equality look like women going out for work, and not making it look like men taking charge of the caregiving and men taking charge of the household. Because I even feel like even the equality is defined in terms of like it requires us to do something. It doesn't require men to do something. And
Yeah.
this is also and now like there are a lot of I mean, every time I spoke about this, I do hear some counters, as in like but like men are not able to carry the pregnancy, or men are not
Yeah.
really equipped to breastfeed children. Okay, they are something those things come with like a biological predispositions, but we are not really expecting those are not what we are expecting, right? We are expecting to for them to see like, can you just look around, can you do something without me having to tell you, right? So I'm feeling like this is another thing which as a society that like we are not equipped, or we are not there. Of course there is equality in paper, we all talk about it, but I still feel that men need to step up, men really need to step up, fathers need to step up. The more again the statements are here is that I do it better than my dad. I appreciate, yes, I see that, Okay, but this is not enough. This is not the. I think the standard that we have for fathers is too
Yeah.
little, and as such, like if a father can take up a role that the mother has been doing in the house for so many years, and the father does it for 3 days when the mother is not there, the father gets. I mean, there isn't a physical medal, but he gets a medal, if you know what I mean. And so I think this equality is another thing that I would like to talk about, not very specifically to caregiving aspects, because there are also, again, constant stereotypes that, women are more empathetic or women, are better at caregiving. So I would want to say that if somebody wants to step up and they will do it. So it is always easier in families where, men also take equal responsibilities without, somebody having to supervise them, without somebody have to tell them what to do next. Because it's not like mothers have 10 deliveries before they actually deliver their it's not like they have delivered model babies before, it's also the first time. And then
True.
The one thing is that, we are committed to learn. And if you want to learn, you can learn that, So I would say that, one is this, the one is about, like how women are having to do all of it. And other one is about, how even though they live with a larger family, it still becomes a role of the mother, or probably the mother's mother, or the mother's mother-in-law, or the mother's aunt, as if like nobody exists in the house, right?
Yeah.
That is something I would like to say. And the third thing I would like to add, like I said, there are more things, but I think I'll just name three of them.
course.
The third thing I would like to add is that a lot of times these pressure come from women. Okay.
Yeah.
It could be women living next door, or it could be somebody from your own family.
Yeah.
Because, somewhere we also carry some level of self-righteousness, as in, I did this with my child. I gave up my job for my child. Or, I breastfed my child for 5 years. Yes. Okay, so now everybody has a space to, decide what they want to do, or how they want to mother their child, how they want to parent their child. But we should also be really aware that the resources that all of us have are very different. Everybody has the resources, as in, when I mean to say resources, it includes how physically fit you're feeling, or how mentally fit you're feeling, how affordable it is for you to hire staff.
That's very deep, Abinaya. In fact, just as you said that, I could relate to a similar instance for myself in my own motherhood journey. So as a child, I wasn't breastfed. Okay, and now when I became a mother, I took this upon myself. That I need to breastfeed my children. And I think the pressure was too much. And this wasn't inflicted from someone from outside. I think I built it up within myself. And I mean, while I built up that pressure, and when I looked around, I could not find much support. So, I mean, I get what you're saying, that a lot of times these image about ourselves, the ideal image that we make, it can be very compelling, to say the least.
Aparna, you and I, we agree on a lot of things. We have similar opinion on a lot of things. But I'm sure that, there are a lot of differences in terms of, like what you choose as, like values, or, what are the ways that you want to raise your children, or what is possible, or what is doable for each of us here. I think that we women really need to give the space to each other, and, and then just to see that we all have our own way of doing things here.
Again, I know there is so much that we can talk about this, but if I can just touch upon one more aspect about it, the unsaid burden of breastfeeding and weaning. You're a lactation counselor yourself. I also work in a space where I hold the postpartum space for a lot of breastfeeding mothers. And this is something that I want to understand from your perspective as a psychotherapist. Is the burden real for breastfeeding, and who is the one creating this burden? Like, where is it coming from? Is what I'm I'm still trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Who has given them this burden? Like, where do you think it's appearing from?
Yeah. So like not only about breastfeeding, Aparna, but in a lot of things that we see as a burden or an expectation. Not everything comes in a verbal form where somebody comes to you, sits in front of you, and then tells you that you know what, I expect you to breastfeed for 5 years. It doesn't always come like as a direct, as a verbal expectation. But then there are a lot of subtle forms of putting down each other, or a lot of subtle forms of judging other mothers for what they are doing, or and sometimes you also don't know the impact. Okay, so for example, mother A might say that I'm not able to breastfeed because like I am struggling with my mental illness. And then mother B might say that I also did, but in spite of that I did. Okay, yeah, great. Okay, I mean, you were able to do that, somehow, it was possible for you to do this, right? But again, the one thing I constantly believe is that almost all of us want to give the best to our children, including the mothers and the fathers, everyone.
Yeah.
We all really try to give the best. So if somebody is really not able to get there, then it isn't a plan that they have devised. It is something that really looks impossible for somebody. And just for an example, when I talk about a lot of subtle notes that we draw from our environment, these cues, we draw it everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'd also say that like women are trying to take in these cues and see immediately, like shoot them in their head, what am I doing wrong, right? I'd say that just like what you had mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, that breastfeeding is a very natural thing and it will happen.
Yeah.
I believe that, and I didn't do anything about it. So a lot of my conception period went in, because I had the resting period, it just went in reading books, and of course I had a very good diet, and like buying those cute cloths that you find online, and like other accessories and stuff. I did really wish, at hindsight, probably I had been more informed on breastfeeding, because it just felt like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. Again, I have hardly again seen women breastfeed children, in front of my eyes, from the time I've been a child, until I was a mother. Because, I mean, I'm also a little hopeful that things are slightly changing, because, it is also made to look like, something that's not happening.
Yeah.
And a lot of limitations come in, if women choose to go out, or like feed their babies outside whenever they are outside. And even in their own houses, like women they get instruction from other older people in the house, especially like probably the mother or the mother-in-law, that like that they are not they're not even like expected to be in the living room watching TV when they are feeding the baby, because they think that it is and like fully covered and fully insulated subject. So these are the cues that we like take from the environment constantly, like a lot of them, like including me, that we all thought that okay, it's just going to happen. But it is not going to happen, because everything is a practice. Even though if somebody has a lot of theoretical knowledge, then practically when you're being put in the spot, right, it's like all of us telling our parents that I will never yell at my kids. Right.
I like that analogy.
Yeah. It because you are not there when you said that you were not there. I'm not in for yelling kids, but what I'm trying to say is sometimes reality hits, and then sometimes you get reflexes, and then things do happen when you're really put in the spot. So it is really a burden. I would rather say that like instead of instead of waiting for the breastfeeding to happen naturally, I would say that we will educate the whole family, and it's just not women's job. Because if it is the woman who's feeding the child round the clock, then I would want the father to probably bring the snack, or probably like bring water, or probably take care of something else. But then this is also a pressure, because there is a little human that wants you all the time, and then they are also expected to like do all of it. It is really a burden. It is really a burden.
I'm very tempted to ask you one more thing around the same thing, Abinaya, is that I have seen in my professional work that there is also a level of judgment and shame which is attached to when it comes to decisions like co-sleeping, weaning, of breastfeeding, and or for example, what you just mentioned, that there's a mother who wants to go back to work, who wants to step out and reclaim her life back. So there is a lot of judgment. I'll explain how and what I see is that there is a mother who decides to stay at home and exclusively breastfeed for 6 months, versus there is someone who wants to go back to work at 3 months because her work doesn't allow her to be at home for more than that. And she chooses to provide expressed breast milk. And when that sort of gets over, she is okay to add a bit of formula as well. Now, what I see is when I speak to two mothers of, in a similar stage, I see the one who is stepping out always carries some bit of guilt. And she would always be someone who would report that I feel I'm being shamed for my decision. Similarly, it is for co-sleeping and other things. So, how does shame and judgment that comes in postpartum period, how does that affect the psyche of the mother?
Yeah. Because for a very long time, for decades, women are socialized to be caregivers. I'm not saying that, only women can do it the best. They have been seen as, they've been seen and they have been trained. It is like, they are made to become caregivers. From like I said, not everything is verbally said, but like even from the very young age, there are things that young girls notice, young children notice, and I feel like it is through this lens that we see women. The lens is that women are first caregivers, and then maybe something else.
Are we really the first caregivers?
Women are excellent caregivers. That's true. We are. I don't have anything to refute it, because I also feel like we have very strong EI, and we make excellent caregivers. But this just doesn't mean that we will only be doing caregiving. We have our choices, and as much as like I am the mother to my children, there is a father to my children, and then I would want fathers to do something a little more than bringing home the paycheck, right? Because we're not really talking in terms of like caregiver and provider today. Even I feel like this guilt and the shame that you're talking about, it is both the ways, right? Let's say that I decide to stay at home, and I have witnessed people, women being asked that, like, what is that you studied for? Oh, you took a medical seat. Right? Or let's say that, I try and toil in the kitchen because, I have guests coming in. But then, then I'm also worried that I haven't made the living room. Okay. Or let's say that, like, I'll spend time with the people, so I'll just take food outside. And then the judgment is going to be that, oh, you can't even make food at home. So, I really like this, not in the exact words, but, there is this book that I came across recently. It's written by Nilanjana Bhaumik. She says that a perfect woman is somebody who can have a career, excellent career, then come back home and make the home look like she has never been out all day. And then freshen up herself and then look perfect, then serve tea to everybody else as soon as she's back home.
That is very deep. And that indeed makes me think how in our society we look at women, and I really understand what you just said about women being looked as the primary caregivers. And I think it doesn't just start when we grow up. It is deeply rooted in our childhood, as young girls when we are growing up. And a lot of times we also carry the trauma of our mothers as well.
Agree. It is relatively an like upcoming study. A lot of it hasn't been really, come out. But, it is, like it is a part of epigenetics that we are talking about. So, yeah, like you said, it just doesn't suddenly appear the day that we choose to become mothers. It has always been there. And, we kind of, for example, there is something called paid maternity leave, right? Do we have paid paternity leaves? And most of the organizations, like whatever I've heard, gives for about like a week holiday, as if like, that was enough for the father, to be with the child or to be with the mother. So yeah, I'd say that, like we have been trained that way, we have been made to look that way. But, I think, we should all, facilitate it for each other, for other women to, have our own choices. And probably if we can step in and support and then say that, hey, I've got this for you. Or, or probably just leave them to, make their own choices. I think there are other places that you can compete and probably win accolades, but this is not the place where you want to make it hard for other mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I truly feel now that you are wearing your heart on the sleeve, just as
Thank
you
you.
said that.
Yeah.
Abinaya, you mentioned something about fathers saying that, oh, I'm doing it better than my father. So is it possible for these men, these fathers, to break out of their generational cycle where their fathers were mainly into fetching the resources and their mothers were just looking at the house and the kids? Do you think that the new age fathers are breaking that cycle? Do you see that happening?
I do see that.
Okay.
I wouldn't see. If you ask me to measure it by what is the percentage, I wouldn't be able to do it because I feel like there are ripples here and there, and then there are patches here and there.
Yeah.
But then I see a lot of difference in like. Again, there is always a limitation to like different families, and this is not a representation of all the men in the like country or around the world. But I do see that there is a lot of change in like how men are trying to stay attuned to the needs of their child or children, and I very much think this is possible. Because this has also been something which has been favoring men. And so for men to step down and say that, like, hey, you know what, I have more privilege than you, so I think, it would be right for me to step in and do this.
Yeah.
It requires some amount of, like vulnerability and authenticity to share that. And
I love those terms.
Yeah, which is a lot of work, but which is like definitely doable.
Just to help those who are going to be watching this and in general to have this coming from you, I really want to understand the difference between baby blues and postpartum depression. Are these two the same? How interrelated are they? And what would you call a mother who is, say, 4 years postpartum and still carries trauma from her postpartum period? So how would you categorize them?
Yeah. So, a depression that arises, or, like any mental health condition that arises in the postpartum period, like it is not necessary, like we discussed before, that it is going to subside itself within the year. I also read that, like a lot of mothers in our country, live with chronic depression without being aware of the fact that they are depressed, because it has been so normalized to the extent that, like it happens to everyone, right? It happens to everyone doesn't mean that, like we shouldn't take help.
Are we also normalizing this for convenience sake, Abinaya? Because people don't want to... Is it that we don't want to deal with the reality?
I can say, like maybe a part of it.
Okay.
Because like I remember, I remember during my postpartum, there's just an anecdote that I'm sharing. I remember visiting an ortho and a gastro and a psychiatrist and a psychologist and a lactation consultant, and
Wow.
variety of people, because like I had to address different parts of my body for like all that my body went through, and I had questions and I had things to address. The very frequent the first frequent words that I heard from my own family and extended family is that they were a little surprised that I was going to take care of myself, which means it was an alien concept. And like, you see, this could have also been a possibility for guilt to creep in. Thankfully, like I was aware that I'm not going to take this guilt, because like I am doing something which is rightfully mine. It's just to take care of myself. And although I say this, if you ask me if I've been able to fully take care of myself all these years, the answer is no. But again, like I think there are places that I'm trying and taking care of myself. So like there was a surprise, because oh, this happened to all of us. Or there was another woman in the family who went to say that once we have children, it's done. We don't really have to take care of it.
No.
Okay, like it's like let's say that I delivered my kids when I was around 26. I think I at least have 50 more years to live, or maybe 40.
No, it could be even more.
But this is the body that is all left, and then I want to take care of myself. So it like basically it stems from a place of feeling, and then making you feel that you are asking for something that hasn't been asked.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not going to blame any of these women, because I also stay ignorant in many other places. I'm still learning, and I'm still unlearning, which is why the unlearning parent. That it's like every day is a revelation, as in like what we are learning, and like what we are unlearning, something that has been taught before, but then you decide that it is not serving you anymore, so you choose to unlearn. So a lot of this like is so normalized. You say that this happens to everybody, then it is more like you're concluding it. It is like you're summarizing, and there is nothing much. It happens to everybody. So something that is happening to everybody doesn't mean that like you are prevented from taking help. In fact, I would say that all the mothers, your mother, my mother, our aunts, our grandmothers, everybody rightfully deserve the help. And then it's very unfortunate and really painful, as I say this, it's really painful that it is not really accessible to them. So I think baby blues is more like an immediate transition period as soon as you have delivered. And again, we see that these terms are being used very interchangeably.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. So even if a mother is like 9 month postpartum, you say things like, oh, it's just the baby blues, right? Because baby blues is something that is like that we expect to be around for a shorter period of time, because everything is new. You are a new person now, and then you have a life or two to deal with, and it is a shorter period. But anything that exists more than a month, we don't call it baby blues anymore, because it really. So I also don't want to make it look very simple to self-diagnose, because it is very tricky to self-diagnose. But I would say, so this is a difference basically when you say postpartum blues or baby blues. It's supposed to be there for a shorter period of time, a quick period of you adjusting yourself, to the changes that's happening within and outside you. But I would not, suggest anybody to self-diagnose themselves, because it has got a lot of layers to it. For example, one layer could be how hard it is making your everyday life, or how much are you able to connect with your baby, or how much of your expectation has been met. And what are the limitations physically or feeling, not because of physical ailments, but in terms of fatigue, or in terms of sleep, or in terms of appetite. So like really lot of layers to it, and sometimes there can also be self-harm and the likes of it. So it is a very delicate thing where I would say that even if somebody is thinking they are experiencing postpartum blues, there is no harm in getting checked.
Okay, so on that, Abinaya, I want to ask you, who should they connect with? Like, what should be their line of approach when a mother who is, say, 3-4 weeks postpartum faces something like this, that she feels that she can't put her act together, or she does not feel very attached to her baby, and she feels that this is not normal. So what should what should be her next step? Also, if you can address, there's a huge taboo associated with seeking help for your mental health.
Yeah, yeah.
How can we break from that?
So I'd say that, like whenever the mother feels that, like something is not right, that they need a little more help with, this is, one of the very first advice, or, like a suggestion I got from one of my cousin's wife, who's much older than me. The first thing she said is that, like, take all the help that comes your way.
Okay.
Okay. I think it took me a couple of years to understand what she meant, because it wasn't just the help that you can hire, it wasn't just what your parents or in-laws are offering to do, but you will need a lot of help, a lot of support to to survive as a mother, and to thrive in the way that you want to thrive, and to provide the nourishment and nurturing to your child the way you want to. So I would say, whenever the woman feels that, the mother feels that there is something that isn't right, they can get in touch with any mental health professional. In case of emergencies, like in case of self-harm, or in case of very extremely distressing situation, it is always recommended to connect with a psychiatrist, because who can also evaluate them, who can also put them on medications if necessary. When I speak about it again, I know that there is a lot of taboo around like meeting the psychotherapist or a psychiatrist. It is the only difference is that anything that is not visible, we assume that it is not present. Right. Because it is very easy for people to ask for a couple of days sick leave. They can say that I have fever and I need holiday, but then you can't say that I've been feeling very low today, I can't get up from my bed.
Yeah, it's very deep.
So I would say that like they can get in touch with any mental health professional, but in case of emergencies, I would always suggest them to meet a psychiatrist, and based on the evaluation, then they'll be advised to not in all cases that people will have to go through the medication, but it really depends on where they are and what kind of support they need. In some cases, in some times people do well with therapy, and in some times people will need a specific model of therapy, and sometimes it can be with some more support of medication. All of this is okay. Like we said, like we all need to get the help that we want.
Just on that, this is a common question that I also get asked when I connect some mothers with a therapist or psychiatrist, is that the medication that the psychiatrist may prescribe to the mother, would it be in alignment to the mother's breastfeeding? Would the psychiatrists be aware of these kind of medicines? Like, I mean, coming from someone who works in the mental health space for women, I think you could help people understand more scientifically that there are these such medications.
So there are such medications available, but like we cannot say that all antidepressants are again all antidepressants go well with the nursing mother. It depends on the issue they are dealing with, and it depends on the need for the medicine. And then there is also like another what do I say? And sometimes there are also, like postpartum psychosis, which is like very severe. So mostly these are the cases where, the mothers are requested to, like refrain from feeding the child, or probably like, suggested to look for alternative. I would say that there is, still, a bridge that is, I would say that the bridge is still developing. I wouldn't say that it is not possible to be to get yourself treated while you're breastfeeding. But sometimes I also feel like things are a little disjointed. Because what happens is for example, a lactation consultant is someone, like, I know I am one and you are one, is supposed to, see what is the best breastfeeding plan for the baby, right? We don't really see, or there is very little scope to see that, like, what is making it hard for this mother, right? Sometimes I feel like, sometimes mental health practice is also more like, how can I help this mother feel better? And it doesn't take the other aspect of, okay, the child needs this, or the mother is more aligned and inclined to continue the breastfeeding journey. So it is important for them to, find the right fit of professional they think, they will do well with.
Okay, so that sort of brings us to the last segment of this talk, wherein I want to ask you if you have one advice that you want to send out to mothers who are feeling overwhelmed or challenged in their postpartum period. And this advice could be like a ray of hope or sunshine or just support that you want to show to them.
Yeah.
So what would it be?
I would say that, like, for every mother, this is very important to remember, is that, your journey as a mother is not going to look anything like your best friends, not going to look anything like your mothers or grandmothers or somebody else, because, the dynamics are entirely different. I think it is a half burden left once you really stop, comparing yourself with what works for everybody else, because your journey as a mother is very unique, and, it is very different from everyone else. And I would say that, like I mentioned before, the resources available are different, the needs are different. Probably there is a mother, like, who has no option but to go back to work as earlier than expected, and maybe there is a mother, who is who has the flexibility to stretch a little longer to be with the baby and all of this. I think I would really want us, to come forward as a society which, can see mothers for what they are doing and to respect them for whatever they are doing already. And not to make them feel like there is always something that is we are really going to miss. So I would say that it is important to trust in our own journey. There is it is always a wonderful place to stop, to pause and see that, am I doing something wrong, or am I missing something? Because I think this is really really a necessary reflection to add things to our life, to enrich our life, but at the same time, I think there is also a lot of I think there is also a lot of, what do I say, I think there is also a lot of weightage that we offer to every advice that comes
Said
through
the right
way.
word.
I think we also need to look into that, and be it's okay to be a little dismissive of things, to say that, oh, it worked for you, amazing, it doesn't work for me, and to go about their way. This is easier said than done, because unlearning a systematic conditioning is not a one-time process, because sometimes we try and then we see that it's just very hard. So it's okay, we don't have to do it 100%. If 60% is all that I'm able to do, and I'm able to relieve myself of this burden, then it's okay to do this.
And that 60% might be 100% for someone, and maybe like a 20% for someone, right?
Absolutely. I wish mothers see that what all they're doing instead of what all they're not doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's very deep. Thank you so much, Abinaya. This has been such an endearing process of listening to you in person and talking about a cause which both of us are very closely connected with. Thank you for pouring out your heart, which you carry on your sleeves. Thank you so much. And I really hope that with this, people who watch it, mothers who watch it, they do feel supported and they feel encouraged to look after their own mental health postpartum.
Thank you so much for having me, Aparna. And also, I'm very grateful for the subject that you really wanted to, like discuss, and you want to hold the space, to talk about what motherhood is, and, what the journey is like. I think that is very important because, a lot of us are really afraid to talk about, where we are vulnerable. But I also believe that this is how we also empower each other. And of course, for the future generation to come, that so that they feel that what I'm feeling is okay, like I'm not it is not like a feeling that I'm not supposed to feel. So this has been really, really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.